Ladies and gentlemen, AC Race Best here to talk about, yes, the news. It is finally announced that Zootopia is going to get some friggin' credit. When Zootopia was released back in 2016, it made waves in the box office. And because of its popularity, not only here domestically in the US, but also across the world, it was able to break $1 billion and, again, made the news because of its popularity. Now, the movie wasn't only making noise because of its box office results, but because of its storyline, the animation, and a whole bunch of other great quality things that made the movie one that I went to see in theaters 30 times. Am I crazy? Yes. Yes, I am. When the movie left theaters, it also felt like it left Disney's mindset. There wasn't a lot of new merchandise that came out, in fact, barely any, as well as the presence of Zootopia at the Disney parks is very slim. But that's all about to change. January 22nd, 2019, an announcement came out that Shanghai Disneyland will be getting an entirely Zootopia-themed land. Construction is set to begin on this land later this year, and it'll be the second big expansion that Shanghai Disney has seen in its short lifespan. It's only been around since 2016, just recently got a Toy Story Land, and is now getting the first ever Zootopia Land. The new themed land will also invite guests to fully immerse themselves in the mammalian metropolis of Zootopia, and come along on an adventure with Judy and Nick. Now, some people might be wondering, why China? For some, the park ending up in Shanghai Disneyland, out in China, has been a surprise. For others, it makes complete sense. If you look at how well that this movie did in China, being now the #1 animated film to ever release in China, and it got an extension, if you recall, that very few movies do get. China has a very strict policy with its movies that come out, and it says, oh, you can only get this many weeks. But with Zootopia, because it was doing so well at the time and was so popular in its country, they gave it extra time. That is unusual. I personally think it's going to be interesting having it in Shanghai Disneyland. As far as the location goes, am I excited that it's on the other side of the world? No. The Chinese brought in so much money for this movie that it does make sense when you look at how popular it was. Yes, it did well domestically, but in China? China, I think, did about 1/4 of its entire run just in that one country, globally. Whee. Now, also with it being in Shanghai Disneyland, some people might be wondering, okay, if I went there as an English speaker, what can I expect? Well, most of the rides, in fact, I think all the rides there do use Mandarin, not English. So, if we went to see our Zootopia characters, we're gonna be watching them all, or listening to them all, speak Chinese. That'll be interesting. Now, with this all being said, does it mean that, aw crap, we missed our opportunity? I don't think necessarily. However, also looking at expanding parks, Shanghai being a new park and probably having the land to spare, makes sense. They'll be able to have room for this kind of park, where at Disneyland, for example, they're probably gonna have to wiggle it in somewhere. Not saying I don't want them to do it. Disney, do it! In Disneyland, there was talks about Bugs Land going away. Now, I was hoping, I was crossing my fingers that this was maybe a chance for them to put a Zootopia Land somewhere in there. Utilize that space that's now being used for Marvel Land. We don't need no Marvel Land. There's also been a lot of discussion amongst people about, well, what about Walt Disney World? Of course, Animal Kingdom, animals, Zootopia, and a movie entirely with animals. Now, some people feel like it wouldn't fit the narrative of Animal Kingdom, but I say it's Animal Kingdom. As far as narratives go, I get it, but certain parts of that park can have a narrative. Sure, go ahead and put Zootopia Land in there. I know a lot of people have been talking about that Rafiki's land area that's been taken up. That's a spot that could be utilized for this, as well as other portions of that park. It's Florida. I think they got some space. Other people talking about Walt Disney World have stated that this should go in Hollywood Studios, partially because that is a park that just has whatever IPs they want to throw into it. They just recently opened a Toy Story Land there, and what the hey? They have a bunch of space to work with, right? Zootopia Land. Now, I'm only saying that they have a lot of land out of hope. I don't actually know for a fact that they do. But they can make it. They can make it. Disney does magic. Now with this land, there are so many opportunities. It's been stated that there's gonna be a new major attraction. There's also gonna be food and beverages that have to do, as well as merchandise. Thank God! A lot of theories have already been popping up about this park stating, okay, what will they do not only with the attraction, but with the land? First, I wanna put some thought into what ride or rides might end up in a park like this. First off, we have a huge train ride segment in the movie where Judy goes to Zootopia. That's been a thought that some people have been bringing up, saying, hey, what if they have at least a train that gets you to the park? Now that would cause a lot of congestion issues in my opinion, but if it was an option, an additional option, kind of like riding the train to get around the park at Disneyland or Walt Disney World, hey, it'd be cool to have an additional train or something to get there, or you can walk. There's another scene that involves train tracks, or at least a rail car, that is rather intense. That would be a badass ride. The scene where Judy and Nick are trying to get away from the henchmen, as well as bring the evidence into Zootopia, ZPD, that would be badass. Now they could go another direction with this. They could put a dark ride in. Now dark rides are, you could think of your Pinocchio, Snow White, Monsters Inc. and California Adventure. A ride kind of like that would allow them to tell a story, maybe the story of Zootopia, or perhaps a new story involving these Zootopian characters. They can do a lot in a small space with dark rides, so I think that would be an option. We also have a scene in Zootopia where Judy and Nick are riding a gondola. So I don't know if Disney's so hip and big with these type of rides anymore. They used to have one, I know, in Disneyland back in the day, and yeah, that might not be something that comes back, but they also have something similar in California Adventures, which is now the Mickey Fun Wheel, or Pixar, I'm sure it's Pixar Dongle Wheel or something, I don't know. That too would probably just be something to get to and from the area. I can't imagine there'd be a lot that they'd be able to do with a ride like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a reference to it in the park somewhere. Another type of ride that we could possibly see end up in Zootopia Land would be your standard water ride that Disney loves to utilize because they're efficient. You're able to do a lot with them, as we've seen in Pirates of the Caribbean, as we see on Splash Mountain. They like to use those water rides. They've used them recently with the new Avatar Land that came out, so there are options here. To finish off with the ride discussion, I could also see them possibly putting in a roller coaster. A high-speed story adventure. Why not? It's a possibility. It's something that, again, I think could fit the intensity of Zootopia. There are a lot of scenes in that movie that involve, there's explosions, there's high speed, there's chasing, there's getting away, there's running after. There's a lot of stuff that they could do with a high-speed roller coaster. Just saying. Throwing it out there. Now, one thing I also found very interesting about this is that they stated that there would be food and beverages. Zootopia themed food and beverages. And I started kind of theorizing, well, what kind of food and beverages would we see? Now, funny enough, most of these involve lots of sugar. You could go Gideon Gray's Pies. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bakery. Gideon going to work. For ice cream, hello, let's go to get a jumbo pop. I want to see ice cream that proportional in real life. Disney can make this happen. Also, do not be surprised if you see a popsicle stand. Popsicle stand. Also, for your dinner options in Zootopia, you could have a microwave meal for one. Or not. Imagine them having just like live produce, like it's a farmer's market at Zootopia. Who knows? Maybe they freaking will. I don't know. It's an option. As far as beverages, wouldn't be surprised if we see something with lots of blueberries in it. Right, Nick? Needless to say, living in California, I was a little bit bummed to hear that this park was gonna end up in China. It's gonna be a lot of money to travel. It's gonna be a lot of time to travel. And I got Disneyland right in my backyard. Of course I wish they were still there. Now the good news that I have is Disneyland still has Judy and Nick out and about, meeting and greeting the guests. So that's something that I will always be able to cherish. Hopefully they don't get rid of them, keep them there, Disney. Would I have preferred this ended up in Walt Disney World, a park that's also just across the country, but a lot closer? Yes, I would have. But from what I've heard, people have had positive experiences at Shanghai Disneyland. And you know what? I now have an excuse to go to China. Do I wish it was a lot closer? Yes, of course. Do I even prefer that maybe it had ended up in a different park other than Shanghai Disney? Yeah. But that being said, a baker cannot be a chooser. And I've been hoping, yelling, I've been so loud about this that I felt like Disney has dropped the ball, or had dropped the ball with Zootopia. I'm like, okay, there's so many merchandise options that they could go with, but they didn't. I go into stores, I go into parks, and they tell me the reason that we don't see a lot of Zootopia is because, oh, it's usually just for the movie's run, and then they move on to the next movie. And of course, I look around at all the Pixar stuff, the Princess stuff, Winnie the Pooh, and I go, right, tell me again? That being stated, I cannot overstate how excited I am that Zootopia is finally getting a land. That is huge, and I acknowledge that absolute big news, and the fact that it's so important for the health of this potential franchise. Zootopia not only could be a movie that has sequels, but now that it has a land, I would be even more surprised if we didn't see a sequel pop up from this movie. Yes, I know some people are like, I don't know if I want a sequel, but guys, Zootopia is a movie that literally lends itself to numerous stories. Not just one sequel, I could see 2, I could see 3, because again, this is the type of story setup where it doesn't just stop with, okay, cool, the city's safe now, it's always gonna be safe. There's always more that they can do with it. It's kind of like your Sherlock Holmes adventures. There's always more stories that they can tell, as we've seen. I mean... So my final thoughts with this is, again, I hope that this means that there is a sequel that's going to be arriving sometimes in the future. Obviously, I hope that it is also good. The team that put the first one together did such a magnificent job, and it wasn't just a gimmick. I went to the movie theater because I wanted to see it. When I saw this movie 30 times, 30 paid times in theaters, it was because I wanted to. It's because I enjoyed it so much. And as you can see, I got a lot of Zootopia stuff around here, and I can't wait to see what else they're able to do. A whole Zootopia themed land. I want to see every inch of this land. I want to just be able to go and soak it all up. I cannot wait for this Zootopia land. So, thank you to Disney for giving Zootopia the credit, the clear credit at this point, that I feel like it deserves. I can't wait. I guess someday I'm going to China now. We'll see. But that being said, just wanted to say that those are my thoughts on the new Zootopia Land. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. And I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you all. I want to hear what you think might show up in this Zootopia Land. So tell me in the comments below what you think might show up in this Zootopia Land. And also tell me, what park would you like to have seen this land end up in? Let's say they make another one. They've made multiple Toy Stories. They're making multiple Star Wars lands. Maybe their ears are open for where we want to see the next one. So tell me in the comments below where you would like to see a Zootopia Land. And also, so that's 2 things, I'd also like to know, who else would you like to see get a land? Who do you think deserves a Zootopia Land? A Zootopia Land. Ha! That's a trick question. That being said, I'm AC RaceBest. You all have a great day. More videos coming. Have a good day. Night. Eve. Nair. Thanks for watching. Themselves in the mammalian millennium